succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
That last hour was sobering, but nonetheless, stuff we need to be aware of about the ways in which our kids, even our black kids, are being radicalized in this era of the violent rise of No Lives Matter. Again, as I said at the top of that last hour, it's more of a tendency than it is an actual grouping, but I hope that that made sense to you and that you will make yourself aware of what's really happening online, that your kids are being exposed to. I can assure you there's a lot more that they're being exposed to than you are aware of. So read that article and just to make sure you're in the know. All right, in this final hour of today's program, a conversation with author Justin Grant about his new text. It's called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. I expect in this hour we will talk about how black men in particular can maximize their leadership and at the same time embrace the trials and triumphs of corporate life. Pleased to have Justin Grant on this program. Justin, how are you today, sir?
Tavis, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you bringing me onto the program.
No, it's my good honor to have you on. I'm glad we have the hour. There's a lot to really unpack here about black men in corporate America. Let me just start with this. I'll start with a confession here. I have never in my entire life thought about, wanted to, had any desire to work in corporate America. None at all. And I start with that confession because I have seen over the course of my life and certainly my career the ways in which black men, and for that matter black women as well, the way they get beat down inside of corporate America. And so I said to myself years ago, whatever we do, it ain't going to be inside corporate America. And I just decided, again, years ago when I finished college that I wasn't going in that direction because I never saw the ways in which I could show up as my true authentic self in corporate America, which is not to say that I don't have great respect for black men in corporate America. There have been a number of black men who've done quite well in corporate America. I'm thinking of Ken Chenault, for example, at Amex, and there are many others whose names we could call. But I do believe that there's a certain kind of profile of black men, a black man rather, that can actually step into corporate America and make it work for him. I just ain't that person, and I know that. So I started that confession to ask you a strange question maybe at the outset here, but is there a profile for the kind of black man that can make it in corporate America these days?
That's a unique question. And, I would say that any black man that is ambitious and that is educated and that, might not necessarily see himself as an entrepreneur, could definitely make it in corporate America. But I think it's important that you come into corporate America with a strategy for what you want to get out of it. and that you come into corporate America with the right, physical and mental preparedness for the gauntlet, because it is a gauntlet. But what I will say is that, this book, it doesn't disparage corporate America. I do think that corporate America is a way to build a lasting, intellectually rewarding career. I think if you play the game right, you can build significant generational wealth over time. But it is a marathon. It is a gauntlet. And, this book is all about equipping Black men with the tools to survive that gauntlet. And when you think about the social climate that we're in right now, when you think about the political climate that we're in right now, Company Men is really a call to action for Black men that work in corporate settings. And it's a call to action this is the time to get on top of your mental, physical, social, and financial well-being. And I think that this book provides a roadmap for that.
Yep. I am excited about this conversation. As I said earlier, or intimated earlier, I'm a race man. I ain't a company man. I'm a race man. And those two things, I'm sure, may be difficult to square. But I love the word that Justin's already introduced in this conversation, gauntlet. It is a gauntlet. But then again, everything that Black men undertake is a gauntlet. So when we come forward, I want to start by asking him how the gauntlet of corporate America is different than the gauntlet that I'm walking every day, or anything else that any Black man listening right now has to navigate. How is the corporate gauntlet a bit different? We'll start there and make it do what it do the rest of the hour as we talk about the new book, Company Men, a wellness guide for Black men in corporate America. Its author is our guest in this hour, Justin Grant, on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system. Therapy is a great way to find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABCRadio today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ABCRadio.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Justin Grant, author of the new book, Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. We'll get to the wellness part later in this conversation. Glad to have him for the hour. Let's continue this conversation right now, though, with the point I raised moments ago, Justin, and that is your use of the word gauntlet, which is a great word. But truth be told, you can't be a black man in America without walking a gauntlet somewhere. Everything you do, I'll put you in or on a gauntlet. So tell me, to your mind at least, how navigating the gauntlet of corporate America is different than the gauntlet in any other space that black men occupy.
That's a great question, Tavis. And, to my mind, when you talk about navigating the gauntlet of corporate America, it's a very existential game that you're playing, right? This is your financial future. This is your professional future. This is the way of life that you're striving to build. And you're trying to do that within a framework that has not historically been set up for people from marginalized populations. And, as I dug into the research for this book and I dug into, what it means to fit into corporate culture, I first started with the industry where I've spent most of my career, and that's the financial services industry. I've worked for several large banks. I've worked for several large asset management firms. I've done some really intellectually rewarding work there. I've made friends of all backgrounds, all genders while working in these places. But, I had to go through a period of, trial and error to find my way from a social standpoint in these corporate cultures because, we are underrepresented, and the data bears that out. Today, black people account for just 7.9% of professional workers in the banking industry. We hold less than 4% of top managerial roles in that industry. And the reality is if you go into any downtown in corporate America or downtown in any large city where all the corporations are located, and, you go out to the lunch counters at, the quick serve lunch places, by and large, the people that are preparing that food tend to be on the black and brown side, and the people who are ordering the food tend to not be that, right? So there's a level of underrepresentation there. And looking at my industry again, let's go back in time to the 1950s, right? Somebody with my background, somebody with my credentials, it was almost need not apply, right? Black people were shut out from corporate America in the middle of the 20th century. Women were also shut out. Jewish people, in many respects, were shut out as well. And then, as we got into the 70s, equal employment opportunity legislation got signed, and the doors to these places started to open up to us. But, you're stepping into a culture that was not based on who you are as an African American. And there is a level of assimilation that's required to fit into these places. The other sobering fact as well is that, looking at that financial services space again, well into the 1990s, right? Many firms were under that microscope for not hiring black talent and for not cultivating black talent, for senior level roles. And so, you talk about those types of cultures, you have to deploy the term that we all know as code switching, right? Where you kind of put a version of yourself off to the side so that you can come in and, fit into that culture. That means you're going to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, dress a certain way. And, for talent from marginalized populations, for talent from the black community, you're essentially now doing two jobs, right? You're doing the job that you were hired to do, and then you're doing this other job to try and, play this character. And one of the things that I'm trying to help black men with is finding that place of peace where you can be your authentic self, because it is possible to be who you are and do good work and show up with professionalism and excellence, and not be excellent because you're black, but just be excellent because excellence matters. And that's what this book is all about, trying to help folks find that roadmap.
Yep. You were already jumping into chapter 4, which is called Fitting into the Corporate Culture. And let me just ask a broad question, and I'm asking it broadly, unapologetically, to give you the canvas you need to paint as you will. But how does one even begin the process to fit in when you show up and you already stand out?
That's a fair question. I think one of the things that you have to do as a black man in corporate America is have an almost irrational, delusional level of self-confidence and belief in yourself. Growing up in the 90s, I used to hear all the time, be like Mike, right? Be like Mike.
Yeah. I love that commercial, by the way. Yeah, I love that commercial.
Yeah, we all did. But for me, I live by the mantra, be like J.R. Smith. Now, J.R. Smith was a guard for my New York Knicks. He played with LeBron in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And the thing with JR is that, he was what is known in basketball as an irrational confidence guy. He's going to come out there and he's gunning, he's shooting his shot no matter what happens. Now, in basketball, that's not always a good thing, right? You can shoot yourself out of a game. But in corporate America, and there's a distinction here. I'm not telling brothers to come in and be arrogant, but I want you to be irrationally confident in yourself because, they're going to be these psychological forces that you feel like you're up against that are telling you that you are less than and that you're coming from a place of want. And no, brother, you just got to believe in yourself. And once you unlock that, it took me about 10 years to really reach that level of confidence where you have that freedom to do your best work and do it in a way that's unapologetic. I'm going to put companies under the microscope, though, for a moment. I think it's important for companies to understand that when you bring in talent that comes from a marginalized population, and when you look at your numbers and you see that, certain groups are underrepresented, it is incumbent on companies to create a culture of psychological safety for everybody, right? I'm not telling companies to overlook even white people, but definitely companies, the best companies do a good job of making people feel safe because only then can you do your best work. So I do think that, it's talent has to step in to these environments with that spirit of confidence, but I also think companies have to do a good job of building those cultures for people.
You used the word earlier in this conversation, Justin, that to many of us, and even me at points in my life, sounds like a 4-letter word, not a word that I'm fond of, and that word is assimilation. Tell me why you believe, because you made the point earlier that there is a certain level of assimilation that's required if you're a black man and you want to make it in corporate America. Tell me why I should not regard the word assimilation as a bad word.
Right. So for starters, when you step into a company, well, let's just take race out of the equation for a moment. Everybody who steps into a company as an employee has to assimilate to the culture of that place, right? If it's a culture where people show up and they wear shirts and ties every day, if you're a man, you're going to show up and dress that way if you're a man. If they have a policy on, okay, you got to show up and we don't work remote, you got to show up in the office, you got to show up in the office and work. You take that paycheck, you have to earn it. And I think there's a level of assimilation into the broader corporate culture that is universal to anybody that works for that company. Now, when we talk about assimilating for black people, we are talking about, both that form of assimilation I just talked about, but we're also talking about code switching. And, code switching, you're changing your style of speech, you're tweaking your appearance, you're tweaking your behavior, and you're doing all of these things so that you can get respect from the people who are in the majority, and Harvard Business Review, they've done a ton of research on this. The folks that are the givers of that respect, they're more likely to provide, those niceties if you're conforming to some of those standards. So that is a bit of a challenge. But what I am trying to tell talent is it is possible to draw lines. It is possible to still be who you are. I'm not telling you to go out there pretending that you like certain types of music. You know, if you're a black man, I don't see many brothers driving Subarus. I'm not telling you to buy a Subaru, right? You have to reach that place of peace and be yourself. And one key to doing that, Tavis, I think, is I try to make friends wherever I work. You know, I'm trying to go out to the happy hours. I'm trying to meet people where they are. I'm trying to bring in a perspective of, you know, let me extend trust to people until they give me a reason, you know, not to trust them. And I know that in this social climate that we're in, it's hard to do that. But we do have to approach this corporate life with a spirit of hope, and also understand that, you know what, as bad as things might seem in this year, 2025, we are better off now than we were in 1950. Doors are open now that were closed to us back in the day. You know, we have more black people running Fortune 500 companies now than ever before. We have more black people employed now than ever before. Black wages are higher than they've ever been. So I also think part of this is a matter of perspective and coming with that perspective of hope until we have a reason not to.
Another word you've just introduced that I want to interrogate right quick, and that is the word trust. My view has always been that trust is earned, I'm not so sure that frame necessarily works in corporate America, but feel free to disabuse me of that notion.
Well, you know, for me, and I'm speaking from personal experience now, I came into corporate America. I remember my first job, I was a reporter at Thomson Reuters, and I got, you know, in order to get into that company, I had to survive an interview gauntlet, all white senior leaders interviewing me. I had the guy who was the editor in charge at that place say to me straight up, you know, there's a lot of skepticism about you, right? And, you know, I came into that job, Tavis, I came in scared. I came into that job looking over my shoulder. You know, that one remark from that senior leader caused me so much stress that I developed acid reflux, and I struggled to do my best work because I didn't feel psychologically safe. And, you know, I survived that experience. I was there for a couple of years. They gave me reasons not to trust them, and that cost them somebody who could have been a really good long-term employee. You know, I'm saying this instructively. I'm not saying that destructively.
Sure.
And it took me some time. You know, I'm going to give a shout out to one of my old employers right now. And that employer is Fidelity Investments. You know, Fidelity is headquartered up in Boston. And, you know, I had a team of folks. Many of them were white people, but they made me feel welcome. And they gave me back that spirit of trust. And I did some of my best work in that job. And that kind of helped to change my perspective. You know, I do think it's a double-edged sword here, right? A lot of this has to come from within you, and you have to have that belief in yourself. But I also want companies to know that if you're bringing in talent that is of color, or if you're bringing in talent that might be LGBT plus, or they might not fit into the standard, you know, profile of the majority, create that culture of trust for them so that they can do their best work.
There are some fascinating chapters in this book. In case you've just tuned in, our guest is Justin Grant. His new book is called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. And you think of all the books. I was going through the text last night preparing for our conversation and thinking about all the books that I've read and all the people I've interviewed who've authored books about corporate America. What makes this book uniquely different is that there aren't a bunch of books written specifically for black men who have to navigate the gauntlet of corporate America. And so for that, I'm grateful to Justin Grant for just writing the book. But when you get into it, as I did again, reading and preparing for our conversation, there's some fascinating chapters in here. And I want to spend the rest of our time these last 30 plus minutes, barely 30 minutes or so, talking about or giving Justin a chance to talk about some of these chapters. I don't want to give you the whole book because I'm trying to help Justin move some product here. He's trying to sell product, and I want to help him do that. So I don't want to give you everything, but there are some chapters in this book that just screamed at me. And I want to give Justin a chance to sort of share a bit about what's in these particular chapters. I want to start. I've only got 90 seconds here, so I'll just let you tee it up in these 90 seconds, Justin, and we'll dive a little deeper when we come forward. But the chapter I want to start with, going now directly into the book, is chapter 2. It's called Avoiding the Angry Black Man Stereotype. You've got 60 seconds to just sort of set the frame for that, and we'll continue when we come forward.
All right. We're up against some stereotypes in this country, that cause black men to be perceived as larger and more aggressive than others, and it forces us into this cool pose. But there can be some corrosive effects to that cool pose. And so I want to talk to black men about how to process anger in places that seemingly force us to repress that negative emotion.
I love the phrase, cool pose, cool pose. That chapter, once again, is chapter 2. It's called Avoiding the Angry Black Man Stereotype. There's some other chapters we'll get into as we come forward. I'm glad, as I said 30 minutes ago, that I have them for the hour. There's a lot of this book that's worth unpacking. The book is called Company Men, a Wellness Guide for Black Men in Corporate America. When we come forward, we'll jump right into Avoiding the Angry Black Man Stereotype and do a bit more after that. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Justin Grant right now on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stopped, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
You've lost so much weight. How'd you do it?
I got medical treatment for weight loss through Zelty and lost 50 pounds. I struggled for the longest time, but Zelty makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelty providers can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight, like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others.
I've heard those medications can help you lose weight, but aren't they expensive?
Zelty can help get the medication covered by insurance, so it's as little as $0 a month.
What if you don't have insurance?
No problem. Zelty may be able to help you get other GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% off the price of name brand medications.
I'm ready to start losing weight. How do I get started with Zelty?
Just text.
Text SUNNY to 200-300 to get started today with Zelty and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text SUNNY to 200-300. That's SUNNY to 200-300. SUNNY to 200-300.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Like D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has delayed presenting her proposed budget to the D.C. Council, awaiting Congress's decision on restoring over $1 billion to the current budget. Newark, New Jersey is suing Geo Group, a private prison company, for allegedly renovating a facility without permits to use it as a migrant detention center. Geo Group officials claim the lawsuit is politically motivated. The Justice Department will seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione, accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in what they say was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination. Mangione is also facing state charges in connection to the murder. And being bilingual may slow Alzheimer's brain degeneration with larger memory areas and cognitive preservation. Researchers at Concordia University in Montreal say learning another language later in life can still be beneficial. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
When you visit the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the way you see the world begins to change. You realize that the more you encounter amazing species, the more you can't imagine a world without them. San Diego Zoo Safari Park. See conservation from a new perspective.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are giving early indications that they are serious about winning a second straight World Series championship. They beat Atlanta Tuesday night 3-1 to stay undefeated. The Dodgers are 7-0. The impressive start ties the Dodgers with the 1933 New York Yankees for the best start in Major League Baseball for a returning champion. The Dodgers go for 8-0 tonight against Atlanta. The Clippers are back in action tonight. They're at home against New Orleans at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The Clippers have 7 games remaining in the regular season, and all of them could be important. The Clippers are a half game behind Memphis and Minnesota for 6th place in the Western Conference. The first 6 teams qualify for the playoffs and avoid the play-in round. The Lakers are 4th in the West with 7 games left. They're at home Thursday night against Golden State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
It does indeed. It turns out that April is National Minority Health Month and National Stress Awareness Month. So the timing could not be more propitious for a conversation with Justin Grant about his new book called Company Men, a wellness guide for Black men in corporate America. I said a moment ago, in case you just tuned in, that I wanted to move through some of the chapters in this book, a few of them at least. There are 3 that jumped out at me quite immediately, even before I got inside the book, that I wanted to ask Justin to opine on here in just a second, or share a bit more on. But before I do that, I mentioned that I wanted to start with avoiding the angry black man stereotype. That's chapter 2 in his book, avoiding the angry black man stereotype. He mentioned cool polls. I'll let him unpack all that in just a second. But I'm looking at some of the comments that are coming in real time, Justin, as we engage this conversation. You've hit a nerve with a lot of people. Let me just read one comment because I want to give you a chance to respond. and frame it the way you want to frame it. And I think it'll take us nicely into this conversation about Chapter 2, avoiding the angry black man stereotype. Here's the comment. Tavis, positive though Justin Grant may be, his message seems to, at least in part, put that old, tired onus on black people to act in ways intended to convince white folk that we are not the negative stereotype they created and remain vested in maintaining. It's all yours, Justin.
No, I love that question. I think it's a fair question. And, the person who made that comment is 100% right that, unfortunately, we're in this position, where we have to counteract some things. And, I want to start with just talking about what the angry black man stereotype is. So, this is a stereotype that started back during slavery. And, it depicted us as beastly, hostile, aggressive, prone to anger. We needed to be tamed by a superior race. And the unfortunate thing is that view did not disappear with emancipation, right? This is something that has been reinforced through media representations. We get portrayed as hyper-masculine criminals, gang members, dangerous people who barely, should be walking the streets, let alone calling the shots in corporate America. So that's the specter that we're up against. And, the unfortunate thing is that, we go through the 20th century and there's a version of the cool pose that the tennis great Arthur Ashe felt like he was forced to adopt when he was playing tennis. He talked about not having the emotional freedom to be a bad boy like his contemporaries, Jimmy Connors, and who's the other brother?
McEnroe, John McEnroe.
And McEnroe. Right.
Yeah.
They were the hotheads. And Arthur Ashe, we remember him as a calm, genteel soul, but he said, look, I wish I had the emotional freedom to be a bad boy, but if I did that, the game of tennis would have driven me out of it. And then, look, I'm part of the hip hop generation, right? And, we were forced to adopt a version of the cool pose as well. Any display of negative emotion is weak. You got to internalize anger. You got to internalize hurt feelings. And, I think about a funny sketch that Dave Chappelle put on back in the day when Keeping It Real goes wrong. He has this character named Vernon.
Oh, yeah.
Vernon loses it in the office, winds up choking out one of his managers. And, and he winds up working at a gas station.
Yeah.
And so, look, I want us, though, to just set aside the idea of being disempowered here. Black talent, black men need to understand that if there's something that happens to you in your office that's making you angry, you don't have to just sit there and internalize that anger. And look, I know that being allowed to be angry in a corporate office is the ultimate flex. It's the ultimate sign that somebody has all the power, the one that gets to cuss and bang their hands in meetings. And I can assure you that no black CEO is going to behave like that, right? Because there's some unwritten rules that we have to deal with. But I will say this. I have been in situations in corporate America where I was in a job that was running me into the ground. And they were wearing me out, and it was making me angry. And I decided I'm going to stick up for myself. I'm not going to sit there and take that, right? When you're in a situation like that, you have to understand that you do have some power, and you have to figure out how to cook up some leverage for yourself. And this is something that I have done in my career. I used that type of scenario, and I was getting run into the ground, and I got an offer. And I remember walking into my manager's office, and I said to my manager, look, y'all can abide by these guidelines. Y'all can create a position that's going to report into me. Y'all can give me some more support. Y'all going to have to pay me X more dollars. You meet these terms, or I got to get up out of here, right? That's just one example. But, the point is, you don't have to sit there and take it. You have to figure out if something is making you angry, use that as a motivation for yourself to create a better situation for yourself. And, if somebody's in there bullying you, if somebody's in there mistreating you, you have to stand up for yourself. You cannot feel forced into this subservient position, right? Because, the company has a vested interest in getting the most out of your talent as well, but you can't just sit there and take it.
This takes me straight into nice setup. Thank you, Justin. You didn't know where I was going, but you set me up nicely for it. Takes me straight into chapter 5. Again, the book is called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. We were just talking about avoiding the black man stereotype, chapter 2. Chapter 5, which again, Justin teased up quite nicely, is entitled When to Stand on Your Convictions and When to Let Go. When to stand on your convictions and when to let go. Where's the line, Justin?
Yeah, you should not feel like you have to ask for permission to do the right thing. And, it's important for black talent to remember, especially when you get up into those senior levels. And I've heard, CEOs talk about this. I've heard folks that have been really successful talk about this, that, when black talent fails in corporate America at those senior levels, they fail because they stop trusting what got them there. They start operating from a position of fear. They're afraid of losing that seat, but you got to continue to be bold. You have to continue to be the person that earned their way into that seat. And, you can't be afraid of getting your knuckles rapped from time to time. And I'll just give you an example of that. I went through something in my career. I was working at a large financial firm, and, the pandemic had hit, and we were slated to do an activation at Disney. And I was in charge of, managing the activation on behalf of our CEO. And, I remember asking them, are we going to pull out of this thing? It was late February, and the headlines around COVID were really starting to heat up. The virus had invaded Italy, and it was starting to decimate, that area in Central Europe. And I knew that this thing was coming to Disney. That's the most traveled place in the world other than Times Square in New York. And I remember saying to my senior leadership, hey, are we going to pull out of this thing? And they kept saying, no, let's wait for them to call it. Let's wait for them to pull out. And, I'm biding my time, right? I'm biding my time. And, we get to the week of the activity. I asked them again, are we going to pull out of this thing? And they said, oh, no, let's wait for Disney, to make that decision. And I made that decision at that point, Tavis, that I'm not putting my life in the hands of a supervisor at some corporation. I'm not putting the life of our CEO in the hands of some corporation. I called up Disney myself and said, hey, we got to pull out of this thing. And I got reprimanded. They got mad at me. And guess what? Eventually they got over it, and a year later I got my promotion, right? You cannot be afraid to lose that job. If you see something that's not right, if you see something that you really believe in that's worth fighting for, come up with a solid argument and stand behind that argument, and understand you can always find another job.
Yeah. As they said at Hollywood Shuffle, there's always work at the post office, right? That's right. That's Robert Townsend. There's always work at the post office. If you haven't seen Hollywood Shuffle, go find that movie. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, go watch it again. It's still as relevant and funny now as it was then. I digress on that. Our guest is Justin Grant. His book is Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. I want to delve into one more chapter when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward. Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting, on Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up, and we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Justin Grant, whose new book is called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. So I want to get to this chapter called Managing Thrivers' Guilt. I must confess that the title itself just jumped out at me, Justin, and I actually jumped ahead in my reading, I must confess, to get to that chapter. And then I went back to finish my reading. But that chapter title just jumped out at me, Managing Thrivers' Guilt. Tell me more.
Yeah, Tavis, this was the most deeply personal chapter that I wrote. And, it's actually my favorite chapter. I felt my freest, when I was writing this particular chapter. But, when you talk about black families, there is a lot of socioeconomic diversity within our families, right? For everybody that makes it, there's a brother or a sister or, cousin or somebody who might be struggling. And, you walk in this really fine line in terms of how do I manage, enjoying all of the fruits of this hard-earned labor, right? When you work in corporate America, and you're earning that salary. There's a burden that comes with that, knowing that you might have family that is struggling. And the reality is, you have to understand what your line is. What your willingness to sacrifice for others is, and because and I talk about my own personal story. I'm from pre-gentrification, Brooklyn, New York. I almost lost my life.
He said pre-gentrification, Brooklyn. I love it. Go ahead.
It's a different Brooklyn now.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
And but I almost lost my life 30 years ago, 1995, and it's funny that the book came out 30 years later. But 15 years old, I get into a little scuffle on Washington Avenue, and I get sliced. And, I come within a centimeter of bleeding out on that street. The doctor told me that blade could have got you between your spleen, your heart, and your lungs. And, my two brothers were with me, in that ambulance. And at that time, these were the folks that were the closest to me in life, right? I get through that experience, and it scares me sort of straight. I go through a stupor, but I eventually, earn my way towards a scholarship. I went to Long Island University, but then I look at my brothers. They went in a different direction.
Oh, yeah.
And this entire chapter is about how I've navigated the difficulty in knowing that I'm doing pretty well. I have a wife, 3 kids. We have a nice house in South Orange, New Jersey, and I'm on the board of trustees at LIU, and I've had a successful career. I'm an executive at a major bank right now. But then, my brothers, they're still trying to find their way. Yeah. And, how do you manage that knowing, hey, I got to make this mortgage payment, right? How do I manage it? Listen, I'm a man, right? I have to plan for God forbid. What if I'm not here? I have fiduciary responsibilities to 5 people in a God forbid situation. So that whole chapter is about how do you balance that immense responsibility with taking care of the people that you love, but they're not necessarily in your household anymore.
No, I asked that question because there are many people listening, including yours truly, who have wrestled with that conundrum, as it were, managing thriver's guilt many days of our lives. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Justin Grant, every chapter in this book starts with a brilliant quote. And I'm going to just read this quote to you, and then we'll unpack it in the few minutes we have left when we come forward. The quote is this: "Sometimes you just got to have a little faith. How else do you think them white boys took over the world?" Sometimes you just got to have a little faith. How else do you think them white boys took over the world? Our remaining moments with Justin Grant. We'll explain that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready? Drop it! Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. Know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Justin Grant. I've got just 3 minutes left in this conversation. His book, once again, is called Company Men, A Wellness Guide for Black Men in Corporate America. The last chapter, chapter 11 in the text, is called Leaning into Faith. As I mentioned moments ago, every chapter has a wonderful quote that opens the chapter. And the quote in this chapter, Leaning into Faith, says very simply, but I think poignantly, sometimes you just got to have a little faith. How else you think them white boys took over the world? Your thoughts, your comments, Justin Grant?
Yeah, so shout out to my uncle, Dr. Ginder Marshall, who hails from Ladera Heights in L.A.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna make sure he listens to this episode. But he made that quote. He doesn't even remember, I'm sure. But I was on the brink of, I was debating whether or not to take a job. I was in a real comfort zone in my career, and I got this really compelling offer, but I was afraid to take it because I had been scarred by past experiences in corporate America. When you're a black person and you find a comfort zone, that's not necessarily easy to give up, because we have to think about all these different social dynamics and how am I going to fit into a new place. But, my uncle, he said to me as I was wrestling with that decision, he said, man, sometimes you got to have a little faith. How else you think the white boys took over the world, man? And, I think the spirit of what he was trying to say is, it's like, I want you to go out there and live your life with the same sense of freedom and the same sense of entitlement that they have. You don't ask for permission. If there's a better deal out there for you, think about all that you can gain instead of having that scarcity mindset and thinking about all that you might lose. And, that's a mindset that I've tried to, continue to maintain, because, as we go through life, once we, climb a mountain, now we're at the bottom rung of another mountain to climb, right? We're supposed to continue to evolve, and we're supposed to continue to move forward. Because if you're not moving forward, Tavis, then you're what?
Falling backwards.
There you go.
I say it all the time. There's no such thing as standing still. You're either moving forward or you falling back. There is no such thing in life as standing still. I was laughing, though, to myself when I read that quote from Uncle G here in Ladera Heights, because you mentioned Chappelle's show earlier, and I'm thinking Uncle G is like Negro Damas. He's like he's like Negro Damas, man, just spitting out some good wisdom. I will leave it there. The book is called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. I mentioned earlier, April is National Minority Health Month and National Stress Awareness Month. So no time like the present to have had this conversation with Justin Grant. Again, the book is called Company Men, a wellness guide for black men in corporate America. I highly recommend it. Justin, I enjoyed this conversation immensely. Learned a great deal. Thank you for your time, sir. All the best to you, and congrats on the book.
Thank you, my brother.
Good to have you on. Just like that, 3 hours gone. Back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until tomorrow, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.